Welcome to the Thought Vault, where we learn to unlock our minds to live with more purpose and bold intention. I'm your host, Emily Vermillion. Take a deep breath and let's get started. Today's episode is titled The Anecdote to Living with Regret. Regrets, we all have them. I mean, they are a human response to living life. Regrets can play an intricate part in our self-reflection, learning lessons, and even bettering our lives. But when regrets become a ruminating thought and play like a broken record in our mind, it's then that past regrets can become crippling because our focus on the past will begin to absorb into our present time. And the thoughts of the woulda, coulda, shouldas will become a trap that's hard to escape. This still trap can become so intense that it can negatively affect how we view ourselves and our lives in our present day. And this is what is so sad because this is the space we all need to avoid. The past is gone, and what we're doing today, right now, is what truly matters. This is where we can change. It's the present, not the past. So get ready. This episode's going to be a good one. Studies have shown that when surveyed, most people admit that the regrets they obsess more on are based on regretting what they didn't do, more so on something that they did. The reasoning behind this that psychologists believe is most people feel they can correct or resolve something that they did. They can right their wrong. But regretting something that they didn't do, these are the regrets occupying most people's thoughts. This is because most of us have an innate desire of wanting to be the perfect version of ourselves in our present state. So reflecting on past mistakes of things undone leads us to obsess on that. Had they done this or that, then their present state would be a closer version of their perfect vision for their life. A perfect example of this may be someone not finishing a certain level of education or training, or someone obsessing on missing an opportunity with a job that would have had their life in what would seem a better position. Another example could be revolving thoughts about the loss of a relationship or not answering that phone call, only later to find out it was the last time they would have talked to that loved one. I can totally relate to this topic, and I can honestly say that not having regrets has been a crux to one of my hyper obsessions, and it has been with me for a very long time. As a result, I have tried to live my life with no regrets. And as you may assume, that can get very daunting. And it's not to say that I don't have regrets because I absolutely do. And like the majority of us, most of my regrets rotate around things that I didn't do or the passing of time, wishing I would have done certain things differently or better. And of course, I have very personal regrets as well. But I think we all do. Either way, here is what I've come to learn. Regardless of what the regret is, I can assure you that reliving past regrets and wishing for different outcomes is a tawdry road to nowhere, and in a nutshell, a waste of your present moment in time. Besides filling your mind with negative thoughts and emotion, there's really not much else ruminating on regrets will do for you. Regrets are a part of life, and none of us can live out our lives perfectly. Only Christ did this. As humans, it's virtually impossible to be perfect, and regrets are going to happen, and we cannot let our regrets take over our thoughts in the present. Here's a secret of mine. One of my biggest fears in life is to be on my dying bed and wish I would have lived better, or wish I would have done something more, or even differently. I'm scared I will not lived up to the expectations of Christ or up to the purpose that He created me for. So as you can see, not only can past regrets conjure feelings that can block your happiness now, but it's easy to even project negative thoughts about what the future may hold. It's just a rabbit hole riddled with negativity that should be avoided whenever possible. I suppose having OCD and living with triggers made this drastic notion of living well and having no regrets an unavoidable obsession for me. And I also suppose it was stamped into my psyche at a young age. You see, as far back as I can remember, I was aware that, well, to put it blunt, we all die, and it's a part of life. I was only 2 years old when my maternal grandfather developed a terminal illness, and my mom helped care for him throughout his battle with ALS, or better known as Lou Gehrig's disease. So in essence, I became part of his regular care team too. As far back as I could remember, he was paralyzed from head to toe, and his existence was in a hospital bed at his home and on a ventilator. I remember it was a large celebration if he was even able to blink his eyes, to answer a yes or no question, or move his finger. I have vague memories of this time period, but a few stand out. One time was when my brother was placed on his bedside. I remember tears streaming down my grandfather's face. There were no words, no movement, not even in his eyes, just tears, and my mom kissing him gently on his forehead, wiping his tears with her bare hands, and lovingly lifting my grandfather's arm to wrap around my brother so that he could feel the sensation of holding his grandson that was named after him for the first time. Another was when I was 7 years old, and being that I was part of his care team, I, along with my family, gathered at his home, knowing that his time on earth was coming to an end. My memory of that day is pretty crystal clear. I remember realizing that today was the day, and we rushed home to pick up my brother and my dad. We came back, and my cousins were all there with my aunt and my uncle who lived in town too. I remembered us being huddled, all the cousins upstairs in a room together, and all of us were crying. The pain and the sadness I felt was a bit traumatizing. I remember sneaking downstairs to see all of my aunts and uncles and my parents and my grandmother standing beside my grandfather as the minister came to the house, sneaking back upstairs and reporting what was going on. The pain and sadness I felt was traumatizing. And looking back, maybe it was even fear that I was feeling instead. Then, just a year later, my mom at 9 months pregnant received a devastating prognosis that the new baby sister we had all anticipated wasn't going to live past being born. And my parents had to painstakingly prepare themselves, as well as me and my younger brother, for the impending death of our unborn sibling that we had all excitedly been waiting for. This was heavy info for my then 8-year-old mind to process. Miraculously, God had other plans for my baby sister because she defied all the odds and the doctor reports, and in what can only be explained as a true miracle, even by the doctors, she lived well past being born, and she grew up with us and is one of my best friends today. The miracle of her birth is another story, and I'll have to share that in another episode. So by the time I was 8 years old, I knew two things with certainty. We all die, and God truly does perform miracles. I can say that the ripple effect of miracles is quite wondrous because that was all I needed as a child to calm my mind about the obsessive notion of death and dying. But it was when I was in my early 20s that this thought of having no regrets when I die became very intense for me. It was a hot summer night when I entered my grandmother's hospital room. My mom's siblings, along with my father and my two siblings, were all crowded in there too. We were all there together because a difficult decision had been made to cut off my grandmother's life support. My grandmother's mind had been long gone after Alzheimer's had deteriorated her thoughts, and now her feeble body. We were told by the nurses and doctors that we could be with her in her final moments. I watched as my mother folded herself into one of my uncle's arms and they cried. My heart surged with pain as I felt just sadness for them and for myself. I wondered if I would ever have the strength to make a decision like that if I had to. The nurses came out of the room and we were allowed back in. My grandmother was still alive. She was laying feebly in the bed. She looked like a child almost. She was laboring hard for her last breaths of life in this world. With the machinery no longer attached, it was apparent now that they had truly been keeping her alive for the past several days. I was comforted by the thought that the right decision had been made. We immediately gathered around her bed and laid hands on her and prayed, quoted scripture, told her how much we loved her, kissed her, held her hand. My mom even scooped her arms around her and cradled her as my grandmother took her last breath. Her death was peaceful, quiet and still, and as far as death could go, it was quite beautiful and very fitting for the beautiful person that my sweet grandmother was. This was almost 10 years ago, and my grandmother was only 77. I remember that night as I laid in my own bed, I wondered if my grandmother ever had any regrets about her life, and I cried for quite a while because the thought of that made me so sad. It was only a couple years after this that my grandfather, my dad's dad, became quite ill suddenly, only to discover that he had cancer, which he succumbed to just several months later. My entire family spent every day for a few weeks towards the end with him as we all lived in the same town. The day that he passed, I had been there all day at his home by his bedside. We knew time was dwindling. I made a very painstaking decision to leave, knowing I would be gone for about 2 hours to present a semester-long project and my last class to pass in order to receive my MBA. Up until this day, my grandfather asked every day, "Did you take your last exam, he was keeping up with when I would graduate with my MBA. He was always so proud of me and my siblings and all my cousins of our accomplishments. He told everyone he knew. I presented my project, and as I was walking to my car to return to my grandfather's bedside just a mere 20 minutes away, my brother told me that my grandfather had taken his last breath. Pure regret. A few months after this, my mind went into complete overdrive, being genuinely fearful of dying with regret and living with it. So not only did I spend time worrying about regrets that had already occurred in my life, I was also fearing regrets I may have in my future. I remember my blood running cold at night sometimes, just thinking that I would be on my dying bed, having seen several of my loved ones up until that point lay on theirs, and I didn't want to wish that I would have lived life better. The intensity of this fear has ebbed and flowed in my life since then. More close people in my life have passed, and in some ways, this notion has motivated me to achieve certain accomplishments, and in other ways, it has exhausted me. It's the exhaustion that motivated me to push myself in another direction with these thoughts, because in essence, I came to realize that the biggest regret I could essentially have would be wasting my current day worrying about past mistakes or pondering the future, because it was only the here and now that I could truly change or do anything about. So when I landed my seemingly dream job, I was able to recognize right away what wasn't going to fit in my life and was able to leave that career in pursuit of what I did value, and that choice I never regretted. In a study performed by Harvard psychologists Matthew Killingsworth and Daniel Gilbert, 2,200 subjects could choose from 22 general activities such as walking, eating, shopping, watching television. On average, respondents reported that their minds were wandering 46.9% of the time, and no less than 30% of the time during every activity except making love. What this study shows is that mind wandering appears ubiquitous across the board, and that our mental lives are pervaded to a remarkable degree by the non-present. I mean, the only exception to being present most of the time was making love. The study went further into measure people's happiness, and in a nutshell, it found that a wandering mind is an unhappy mind. I personally have realized that by quieting my mind of the past and future and focusing on the present allows me to focus less on self and more on Christ and what He has placed before me. And this, my friends, is the anecdote to living with regret: being present and focusing on Christ. I used to picture in my mind my regrets as a cloak that I wore, like just a heavy cloak of guilt and shame and disappointment and fear. I used to be frustrated over unachieved desires and passions that I didn't pursue, lost in the trap of obsessing what I should have and could have done differently or better to change my present moment. This way of thinking was all wrong. The past should never be a cloak. The past should never be heavy. The past should never dictate how you feel about yourself today, because today is what truly matters. Holding on to past regret clouds your perception of yourself. And more importantly, these thoughts can even distract you from the only true thing that matters, and that is your relationship with Christ. Two of my favorite verses to meditate on when I'm finding myself fixating on the past is Matthew 11:28-30. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And Philippians 4:6, do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. When we are lost in negative thoughts of the future or the past, we are blocked from glorifying God, which in truth is what our life is supposed to be about. And if there's anything I've learned, it's that life is about living today. Living now is the only thing we have. And this is precisely why mindfulness and being present is so important, because when you can learn to practice technique of being present, you are aware of what God has laid before you. You serve the needs He has placed in front of you to serve. This helps clarify and make known the choices and decisions we are to serve and pursue. We are focused on our present time. When we can be mindful enough to make choices that serve our purpose for Him, we are full. The purpose could even be as simple as being loving to your family or saying hello to a passing stranger. You don't know what that smile could do to someone. You have to be present to even notice these small things. One of my favorite verses that I use daily for being present is this, Psalms 118:24. This is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Think about this verse. This is the day. What does that mean to you? This is the day. This is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. This sums it up for me. Being present today, right now, this moment, and rejoicing in the mere fact that we have this moment. This is what matters. Learning to manage our thoughts about life and past regrets can soften with practice. You can learn to manage the emotions that stem from them instead of being swept away by the negative thoughts. Through Christ and through managing your thoughts, you can sweep them away. You can move on with your day, and you can be present, living now, not in the past or in a dream state about the future. I want to share some techniques I've researched and practiced that may help you too. Being present or mindful is about recognizing the environment that you're in at the moment without thinking about anything else. It takes practice, and studies have shown our attention span has dwindled down to 8 seconds. So be patient with yourself. That is literally shorter than a goldfish. We aren't practicing being still and focused. This is actually something that takes a toll on our health in all areas, mental, physical, and spiritual. We don't have to be in the unknown, waiting for things to make our lives easier or to make things make sense. We want to be at the finale before the start even begins. But the greatest gift you can give yourself is to be present now and notice what is happening in this moment and appreciate it for what it is. See and feel the beauty that there has been to offer. I'm going to walk you through 3 simple exercises right now that you can do at any time. They're simple, but what they do is help you to practice being mindful, practice being present, and really have a more intense ability to see what's right in front of you and experience this life-giving joy through Christ. The first exercise is called a walking meditation. This is a very informal meditation, but it can be easily practiced since we are all having to move and walk at some point in our days. So this is a great way that you can deal with anxiety or heightened emotion. And it simply just comes down to walking and focusing on it. So I'm going to walk you through kind of what you would do if you're going to practice this. You may be at a place right now where you can practice it as I talk about it, but if not, you can practice this later. So you're basically going to stand, close your eyes, and notice the sensation, the weight in your legs, your feet on the ground. Just notice how your body feels just standing still. Once you're focused on standing still and taking deep breaths, you're going to start moving. Notice the sensation you feel when you lift your leg and when you set your foot down on the ground. Notice the swinging of your arms, the bending of your knee as you're moving forward in space and time. Think about how your body is moving and notice all the sensations that you're feeling of just your body in motion. Keep your eyes closed, and when you get to a place you can stop, notice again how your weight feels, how your hips are sitting above your knees, how your feet are grounded. Turn around and begin to walk back in the direction that you came. Your mind might wander, and that's totally normal. Just keep bringing it back to noticing the sensation of movement, moving your legs, stepping your feet, the way that it feels. And as you're stepping forward, you can really begin to focus. Focus your breathing. Focus your stepping. And in this moment of focus, you're giving your brain the chance to be still, to concentrate, to be aware of what you are doing right now. So you can stop and open your eyes And this walking meditation is something very simple. It's just a way to ground yourself again and get you back to stopping any ancillary or heightened emotion that you might be feeling, anxiety that you might be experiencing. It's an easy way to just have something singularly for your brain to think about. And this is really the nuts and bolts of mindfulness. It's being able to focus on one thing in the present. And when you can do these little moments throughout your day, it really helps you have a calm sense. It activates different parts of your brain. It reduces their reaction in your amygdala, which is responsible for your fight and flight mode, which is a very stress responsive reaction that a lot of us can feel throughout our day. So doing a walking meditation is something very simple you can do anywhere at any point. And it gives your brain a chance to practice this. The second exercise I want to talk about is food, a food mindfulness practice. We eat every day, and often when we eat, we're preoccupied. We're doing something else as we're eating. So practicing this exercise will not only allow you to enjoy your food more, but it will give you a chance to help grow in this way of practicing mindfulness and being really present in a moment, in any moment that you want to really focus and be present in. It makes your brain work more optimized. So in this example, you simply need to grab something easy to eat, like a raisin, a grape, or a raspberry. You're going to grab this piece of food, and you're going to notice the first thing about it. You're going to look at it. You're just going to notice the color. Notice the intricate little details about it. Look at it as if it's the first time you're seeing this food. Notice its shape and the intricacies of the way it's formed, the way that it feels, the weight of it in your hand. Bring the piece of food up to your nose. Notice the smell. Does it cause your mouth to water? Does it have a distinct smell or no smell? Then place the item in your mouth. Without chewing it right away, just notice the texture of it. Is it bitter? Is it bumpy? Is it smooth? Then place the piece of food in between your teeth and bite. What's the first thing that you feel? Is it salty? Is it sour? Is it hard? Is it soft? And as you're chewing it, notice the flavor. Notice how the texture changes. And as you're chewing and naturally swallowing it, notice how the flavor may change a bit. Notice how it feels when you swallow it. And when it's all the way gone, think about the taste now in your mouth. Is it immediately gone? Is there an aftertaste? Noticing the act of eating gives your brain the chance to catch up with what is taking place. Your food is more enjoyable. And when you engage your brain in this process, you're much more satisfied. People who take longer to eat actually have a lot healthier relationships with food because they're not just consuming. They're really making it an event. And you really get to experience the food for what it is. This method of eating gives you that practice, again, the practice of awareness. It helps you have more of an understanding of your feelings of satisfaction and enjoyment. It gives you a chance to focus on something and really get that practice in. We eat, all of us have to eat and nourish our bodies. So noticing the process of eating is a great way to simplify your thought life, give you a chance to practice mindfulness and being aware of your present environment and your circumstance. This is really fun to do if you're at a nice restaurant or any restaurant and you're eating something for the first time. Are purposely ordering something that you haven't ever eaten before and do this method. It's really fun. It actually makes eating a lot more fun and enjoyable, and it makes it more of an experience. And I think that's really the heart of mindfulness and understanding it and what we've talked about in the previous episodes. Because when we're aware of what's actually happening in front of us, life is more fun. Life is more enjoyable. We are able to recall things that are important to us because in that moment we were really there and experiencing it on more than just one level, more than just seeing it, more than just hearing it. It was a whole body experience. So the third exercise I want to go over to help you practice mindfulness is something you've probably all heard, and it's deemed the attitude of gratitude, practicing gratefulness. It's easy to get caught in the trap of not being able to see what good is happening in our certain circumstance. So for this exercise, I want you to simply think or write, or you can even say out loud the 3 things that you are grateful for right now. And the key is that it can be anything. It could be your computer that you're working on, gas in your car, your health, your kids, your eyesight, talking to a friend earlier today, or simply waking up. You're grateful for waking up. You're grateful for the shirt that you have. Gratitude is a powerful motivator for good and healthy thinking, and it will serve you so well throughout your day. This is something that I've gotten in the habit of doing as soon as I wake up or as soon as I am in the kitchen and getting my day started. I'll say it out loud often to myself, and then I have another pointed place to go and do it. In my planner, there's a specific spot that says, "What are you grateful for today?" And I always try to write in that spot, even if it's the only thing I do in my planner that day. I always write in that spot because it's this element of my day that stops me. It always makes me smile. It always gives me perspective. And perspective is huge. Perspective is powerful. Perspective can change everything on so many levels, especially if you're going through a time that feels uncertain. So I would implore you to practice this little exercise every single day. It could be as soon as you wake up, before your feet hit the ground, you say out loud to yourself or inside your head, whatever's easiest, 3 things that you're grateful for as soon as you wake up. Or you could get in the habit of doing it as soon as you get in the car and start on your way to work. I encourage you to do it at the beginning of your day because you will see a true difference in how the rest of your day plays out when you start your day with the perspective of gratitude. It's super life-giving and a very wonderful way to practice mindfulness. You can even do it all throughout your day. Take a couple seconds at any point, especially if you're going through like an aggravating time during your day. Stop then and just say, what are 3 things I'm grateful for right now? And see how it changes, like on a dime, you're feeling. It's amazing. It's a wonderful way to feel peace and joy right at any point in time in your day. It's really good medicine. So having these small moments will start conditioning your mind to take and learn how to be truly present. Any one of these exercises you could do at any point because we're all moving throughout our day. We're all having to nourish our bodies and eat in some way. And practicing gratitude is just a good practice to have. You know by now, after listening to the first 3 episodes, that the power of our thoughts are enormously responsible for the way we are living day after day. Just like brushing our teeth, saying our prayers, exercising, training our brain is imperative to overall wellness and quality of life. This can train your brain to come continually back to the present and see it through a different lens of appreciation and awe. Practicing mindfulness activates the frontal cortex. Mindfulness meditation increases the thickness in the prefrontal cortex and parietal lobes, both linked to attention control, and increases function in the limbic system, which processes emotions, and the anterior insula, which helps bring emotions into conscious awareness. When we can logically think about our feelings, we can break down the facts about those feelings and filter the truth of our circumstances and those involved in it, which help us compute and alter our response to others in a very healthy manner. Once we can grapple with the facts, we can make the choice of how to respond and, in tandem, what to let go of. 2 Corinthians 5:17, therefore, if any man be in Christ, he is a new creature. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things become new. I hope this episode and learning these 3 simple practices will help you get started with training your brain and moving forward in a positive mindset. And I'd love to see your comments about how you feel after doing these little exercises and how training your brain has helped you in major ways. If you haven't already, subscribe to this podcast and leave a review. It means the world to me and is very helpful in getting this podcast into the ears of so many listeners. Make sure to find the Thought Vault on Facebook and Instagram. And if you want to listen to these exercises again, you can go to boldpearls.com/meditations. All of our Christian meditations or any of the mindful exercises that we do in each episode are uploaded there. Next week is going to be a fun episode as we have an awesome guest coming on to talk more about mindfulness, Christian meditation, and how it interplays with our everyday relationships. It's going to be so good. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the notification when it goes live. And until next time, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Romans 12:2. Go live with bold intention. Bye for now.